Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite, a show that will help you transform your marketing from mere messaging to programs that break the rules and make a difference. Join the movement today and learn non-traditional techniques that give you an edge. Now, here's your Chief Marketing Renegade, Drew Nizer.
My guest today is Tom Libretto. He's the CMO of Pegasystems, which you're going to learn a lot more about in a second. But it's a publicly traded company based in the Boston area, Cambridge more specifically. It's got 3,500 or so employees worldwide and revenues of roughly $750 million. That's $1 billion annually. Tom has has a lot of tech in his background. He started his career at Lotus, and I certainly remember Lotus. It was the first software that was really made PCs into a business tool, but that got bought by IBM years ago, and Tom stayed through that acquisition and then moved on to Nokia and spent 4 years at Chase. He joined Pegasystems in 2016, and I'm guessing, this is a wild-ass guess, but I'm guessing he's a hardcore Boston fan, sports fan, which I will try very hard not to hold against him. Is that the case, Tom? Are you a Boston fan?
No, actually, Drew, I am a native New Yorker, so I'm a hardcore Yankees fan living in enemy territory.
Oh, now we're on the same page and completely bonded. It's nothing but softball questions from here on out. Well, Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Drew. I'm happy to be here.
So, I have an Aunt Judy, and she's not particularly tech savvy. She's a wonderful person, but not tech savvy. So if I had to explain to my Aunt Judy, who I call the Taunt, what Pegasystems is, could you sort of summarize it in layman terms for me?
Yeah, sure. So Pegasystems we position ourselves as the number one vendor in software for customer engagement, reaching out to customers and enfranchising them more broadly as a company, and in operational excellence, helping companies automate as many of their processes and move work through their system as expeditiously as possible.
All right. Well, I think she'd understand that, and I'm going to move on because this show is for lots of marketers who do know what the things that you just mentioned are. So I have this theory, and of course it's the premise of the show, that there's at least a little bit of renegade in every senior marketer, and sometimes it's harder than in some companies than others. But is there room for you to be a renegade in your role at Pegasystems?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as a company, we consider ourselves challengers, both sort of in mind and spirit. So, our marketing operation certainly adheres to that ethos, and we try to challenge conventional wisdom, and sort of traditional ways of doing things. So very much, a ripe area for me as sort of, I play up my own renegade roots to have that room to do so.
That's cool, and I love the challenger positioning. It's wonderful as a marketer to have an enemy, if you will. I'm curious, if you're a challenger, it means you're challenging somebody. Who are your top competitors?
Well, it's sort of the traditional slate of enterprise software vendors, the IBMs, the Microsofts, the Salesforce.coms of the world, who are, out to also help companies achieve greater levels of engagement with their own customers and clients.
So is there an example here of how you brought some challenging thinking to your role?
Yeah, sure. So I've been here about 6 or 7 months now, and when I came into the operation, saw a lot of good things, and there was that challenger mindset was really taking root, and a lot of preconceived notions within the company were being rethought and challenged. So I had the benefit of coming in at a time of change within the organization, and have been able to hopefully accelerate and catalyze some of that myself. So when we look at the way we're approaching our go-to-market strategies, the way we're thinking about developing integrated go-to-market programs, and then activating those programs across a wide variety of channels, but doing so in a much more targeted and thoughtful way than perhaps we had previously done so. Those to me are all sort of elements of my own internalization and my own team's internalization of that challenger mindset.
Interesting. So when you came in, did you have like a game plan, or was it, I got to get the lay of the land? I mean, some CMOs have a 100-day plan that they bring in, and this is their methodology. How did you approach your new position?
Yeah, there was definitely a little bit of both. So, getting the lay of the land is important. I'm a huge believer in talent as a primary tool in the tool chest. As you build high performing marketing organizations. So understanding, what was working, what wasn't, who the stars were and where we had opportunities to upskill or improve talent was a big part of the sort of the first 90 to 100 days. Equally, having had experiences in larger enterprises like IBM or Nokia or JP Morgan Chase, there's certain levels of discipline that work well in big companies like that companies of our size at Pegasystems, smaller and more nimble and agile, could benefit from. So I looked at my past experiences from a more discipline and process basis, interlocking or supplementing a lot of that agility and nimbleness that Pega has had, and I think those two things marry quite well together.
Interesting. So we had number one priorities is to build the team, and number two was to see if to get the sort of discipline, if you will, in place. As you were sort of putting your priorities together, one of the things that I've seen a lot is that you run into this culture wall, right? That where you had a culture at Nokia, you had one at Chase, and certainly Lotus through the acquisition, you dealt with some of those things. Did you have to make some adjustments to your plan as you went along? 6 months into this, you go, okay, well, we gotta adjust here because the culture is not necessarily you're adapting to the culture versus the culture adapting to you.
Yeah. I mean, with every company, there's you find entrenched behaviors and some of the this is how it's always been done stuff. But on balance, there's been terrific support and enthusiasm for the change that I and my team are trying to drive, which is pretty fundamental. I think historically, as a B2B enterprise software player, approaches were traditional. They were segment based and long lead cycle, marketing campaign programs that would manifest in MQLs and conversion to SQL, and you still to see that matriculate through the sales process. What we're out to do here is really blaze new trails into real-time, true one-to-one marketing execution empowered by our own artificial intelligence engine. So it's a pretty fundamental change in how the company is approaching its marketing and communication strategy, but super aligned with what what we're selling in the marketplace as a vendor of CRM software ourselves. So in that regard, there has been this palpable appetite for us to accelerate change in that direction ourselves.
And I'm really glad you brought that up, because it sounds like, and I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but you're using Pega to market Pega. And I don't know if everybody knows that you have a marketing platform, if you will, and you mentioned AI and cognitive. So let's get at that. How are you using Pega to your own software to market?
Yeah, no, we're very much drinking our own champagne. We have a product called Pega Marketing, which is a marketing automation system, historically been used in more B2C, high volume, high transaction types of environments, particularly where our customer decision hub or our AI engine, can use and model, adaptively a lot of the transactions and interactions that happen in those B2C operations. Me as a marketer in now the B2C, area, was really interested in applying that same technique into the B2B market, and being able to market our own products with our own marketing automation and AI engine behind it. So yeah, it's been wildly exciting so far.
And are you ready to declare yourself the best user of your own software? Or
we are we're dangerously close.
And I think that's really important. And a lot of companies miss that, you create these tools for clients, but if you're not constantly testing them, on yourself, and in one of the, interviews I did, a few months ago, I talked to the folks at MailChimp, and they went so far as to set up a small business so that they could use their software to market this small business and really sort of understand the pains that a customer goes through. So, I would imagine that you're going to be able to sort of take the best practices from how you're doing it to, and then bring that to the client, and perhaps vice versa from how some of your clients are using it.
Yeah, no doubt. We've maintained a first principle approach with the implementation of our own software here, which is that we do not do anything from the from a perspective of advancing the product's capabilities for our own use without that stuff being checked into the mainline code base of the product so that our customers take advantage of the advancements we're making for ourselves.
Right. You don't want to get ahead of your customers because that doesn't seem right, but right. But, I think that's got to give them some sense that, wow, you use it yourself, and that must be. So as we wrap up this sort of portion of it, I'm curious, is this the future of marketing that we're talking about? Is this how things are really going to shape up in 2017 and beyond? That we're going to have this sort of cognitive artificial intelligence really helping to drive better targeting and better messaging?
I absolutely fundamentally believe so. I think we've been on that journey for quite some time, and we've talked about it with different words and different concepts. But the idea of delivering more relevant communications or experiences in the moment based on a high degree of contextuality that is now, that we now have access to via streams of interaction data or experience or conversational data that, perhaps we had access to before, but wasn't all normalized and aggregated together, that would allow us to in real time do anything about it. All of those things have come together, pretty significantly over the past, let's call it 12, 18, 24 months, to the point where, we can use, AI engines or decisioning types of techniques and capabilities to power marketing automation systems, to trigger direct communications into the field of view of a prospect or a customer. And that stuff is absolutely real today.
And that's a great place for us to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to dig in on this world of marketing automation and artificial intelligence, so that people, the listeners, really get how this is all going to come together. So we'll be right back.
Renegade Thinkers Unite is brought to you by Social Media Explorer, the website that explores the world of social media from the inside out. Great advice from today's leading social media columnists and experts at socialmediaexplorer.com. That's socialmediaexplorer.com.
Okay, we're back with Tom Libretto, CMO of Pegasystems, and we've been talking a lot about let's just call it the future of marketing, and it really seems like it is here today. Walk through, maybe you have an example of one of your clients and how they are using artificial intelligence to take advantage of this new world of software and data.
Yeah, sure. So when we look at sort of real-time decisioning that then informs the right offer to put in front of someone, or the right piece of content, or move them through a transaction journey that moves them from stage A to stage B, there are a lot of examples of this. I could talk about Verizon, who's a big customer of ours. If you walk into a Verizon retail outlet, there's generally a person in that retail shop that will have an iPad in their hand and ask you for your phone number and why you're there today. And based on their inputs, your simple phone number, up pops on the screen a dynamically generated offer based on a whole range of different characteristics about you that encompass all the channels you've interacted with, the last time you visited their website, what your current plan is, how close you are to approaching a renewal event, or your lifetime value. All of those things are sort of included in the model. And whether you accept an offer that store rep makes you on the spot is then re-ingested back into our customer decision hub, so that if I walked into a retail outlet in a different part of the country 3 seconds later, and the heuristics of my experience or my profile are very, very similar to yours, that offer may not be given to me. So it's that real-time adaptive learning, learning analytics that makes that experience, or in their case, offer conversion, just blow through the roof in terms of results. That's just one example. There's many in other, certainly in other industries and other use cases.
Okay, I want to dig into that a little bit more and just make sure I get this, because this is pretty killer. So they dynamically generate a specific offer based on my need, and then depending on how I respond, if I don't respond, then that information goes back into the system and suggests that people who have my kind of profile may not want that particular offer, so try another one. So you're constantly, in a sense, almost A/B testing on a real-time basis, which is pretty amazing. Now, is that a fair summation of that notion?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And here's the big difference, or the acceleration we've seen over the last couple of years is historically that analytics would happen in a black box somewhere and may or may not inform better decisions, in batch overnight, or, with massive amounts of latency, at which point it's too late. With true real-time analytics and that adaptation of the models that happens, on a machine learning basis all the time, those experiences that you're delivering to every single customer or prospect can be delivered on a one-to-one basis, at all moments of the day, and in any channel.
That's, kind of phenomenal. And it's funny, I thought we were going to end up talking about an online example, and I think it's really cool that we started with an offline one. Now, Verizon has an advantage, and I happen to be a Verizon. In fact, we're recording this through Verizon software, at least a Verizon phone on this end of the call. So they know my history. I've been with them for forever. And so, they have what they call first party data. So adapting to me is a lot easier than, say, I walk in blindly to, a Bergdorf Goodman. I don't shop there, so that would be bad, but I walk into a Gap, and they could type in my cell phone number. They may or may not have a database on me. So it's a little trickier for them, without that first party data. So let's talk then about the online reality, because so much of, for brands, whether it's lead capture or actually transactional, are happening on a real-time basis online. How does this same principle sort of play out online? Do you have a different client example in that case?
Yeah, we have switch industries. So we have a variety of banking customers around the world. One of the largest in the UK, has piped our customer decision hub into their web channel, so that those real-time offers, we call them next best actions. So the engine determines what the next best action is to take with any site visitor, either on a semi-identifiable basis via sort of traditional cookie matching, all the way through identifiable basis. Those that have logged in or have come over from the email channel where the address comes through and can be immediately knocked against the CRM system, and that engine, in milliseconds of latency, understands who the individual is, will dynamically render their homepage and subsequent pages on the website, depending on their click stream, in order to yield higher and higher levels of conversion to first to third page to any of the CTAs that they're promoting at any point in time, in that channel. The cool thing is that it's really the power of managing the web channel with the email channel with a retail channel or a branch channel, as an example, in that industry, pulling all of those things together. Customer service channel, anything that happens in the customer service center also is an input for primarily from a first-party data perspective, but there's so much data that can be collected from these channels, both on a discrete first-party identifiable basis and an intuited or implied, anonymous, semi-anonymous basis, that you can make really strong guesses around what's going to have the highest propensity to drive a reaction.
Now, I know that some of my smaller business listeners are hearing some of these things and they're going, "Well, I can't afford a Pegasystem, and I'm not a Verizon or a giant bank." Do you work with smaller customers, or is your sweet spot medium and large businesses?
Yeah, our sweet spot tends to be medium and large businesses. I think from a pure marketer's point of view, there's a lot you can do with, either your own in-house technology or simply, applying these approaches, or ambitions to do one-to-one, real-time marketing, without a heck of a lot of investment.
Okay. All right. Well, and so how do you, as a marketer, you've been in this business a while, how do you keep your, marketing saw sharp?
Yeah, it's I try to get my hands on, every piece of information or news or news feeds, blogs, that I can. So, it's the sort of the traditional ones like Seth Godin's blog, or a lot of really good information that's pumped out in a rapidly expanding set of forums, Moz, Optimizely, in addition to mainstream pubs like Ad Age and others. There's a lot of content that's being produced, in inordinate levels. So I try to keep abreast of everything I can. Fundamentally, though, it's talking to customers. So I spend a lot of time, even as the CMO, trying to market our wares into the enterprise customer base. I find that spending time understanding the really tactical use cases that our customers, be them, sales professionals, marketing professionals, operations and IT professionals, are trying to tackle within their own organizations, just gives me a good sense of how I can then go back and inform our marketing messages, but equally, feedback where we ought to be taking our product roadmaps.
Yeah, and there's no doubt that the customer feedback loop is essential. And I imagine at least in the software world where you have people sort of doing it, and they got a growing wish list every day, because and you only get that by using the tools. So let me ask you this: You've now been on the job there for 6 months, but what's the toughest lesson that you've learned when it comes to marketing?
Yeah, I think I guess it would sort of fall into the category of don't be afraid to fail, and that sounds pithy, and it's a bit it's perhaps a bit overplayed. But when I think of it, and I think of marketers themselves, it's in our DNA to delight and please. We don't like to fail at anything, and part of that could be down to, the opaqueness of attribution and sort of this constant quest to evidence the value that you as a marketer are bringing to an organization. Sometimes that works counter to, learning from what's not working, in order to drive, better improvement of your own operation. So, I try to teach my team that, if they're not failing, they're not trying hard enough. And we've sort of adopted that mindset, and you find sort of the refreshment that comes with a little bit more flexibility and territory to explore, as opposed to just staying the course.
Yeah, it's so that I've had lots of folks tell me that, we tolerate failure. And I read one of the guys that I talked to recently sort of found a way to celebrate. How do you walk that balance? And do you have a sort of, let's celebrate both the successes and the failures?
Yeah, I don't know that I don't know that I'd characterize myself as tolerating failure as much as it is, if we fail, come and tell me why, and then it's fine. I want the diagnosis so that we're sure that tomorrow we're not going to make that same mistake. So I think adopting that, look, always be curious. Figure out why something worked, not just that it did, or why something failed, not just that it did, and then we can progress.
So I want to wrap up with, I think there's a potential fear among young people going into marketing that with all this marketing automation, that really they'll be out of jobs because these artificial intelligence engines are going to do the thinking and the campaign planning and the targeting, and frankly, it sounds like even real-time execution. What are the areas that a marketer can do right now to make a big difference, and that will find a fulfilling career in this business?
It's a great question. I think this age-old debate of is marketing a science or an art is the wrong question. I think it's very much both, and will always be very much both. What analytic capabilities will help marketers do is just be more effective in the art that they're trying to deploy. People will still need to generate the stories that are compelling and inspiring and hook people to want to learn more about their, the organization that, or the product or the service that you're marketing around. But having now more tools in your toolbox in order to make sure that you're just driving better, higher and higher impact out of the messages that you as a human being will need to create forever is an exciting place to be. I don't think there's any there's any sort of inherent jobs going away because the machines are going to take it all over thing.
Well, I'm certainly not worried about that because I know they can't yet do interviews and write up those interviews. So at least in the short term, a few of us renegades, and honestly, I think that's the one thing that won't be outsourceable is the creativity, the art part of this. So anyway, I'm going to take a minute to try to wrap up this conversation and some of the highlights for me. First and foremost, if you sell a product that you can use yourself, you better darn well use it and use it well, and strive to be the best user of it, so that you can always stand in front of your clients or prospects and say, we use it, we love it, and we keep making it better ourselves. Number two is the future of marketing is here. I mean, when we talk about cognitive and artificial intelligence, it is here and it's now, and it's not just for digital advertising. The example that Tom provided of Verizon having their sales folks equipped just by simply providing the sales the cell phone number, they can serve up very customer specific offers, and then adjust those offers on a, if you will, global basis, which is phenomenal. We talked a little bit about experimentation and being willing to fail, as long as you're willing to ask the question afterwards, why didn't it work? Which is sort of blends right into this idea of never losing your curiosity. I thought it's interesting that you felt science or art is the wrong question. I think that this is a world where both are increasingly important. You certainly can't succeed today in marketing without an understanding of some of the science and take advantage of the tools that are available for any size business. So I think this has been a terrific conversation, Tom. I thank you again for being on Renegade Thinkers Unite.
Thanks very much, Drew.
This has been Renegade Thinkers Unite, but it doesn't end there. Just go to renegadethinkersunite.com for more and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll talk with you next time on Renegade Thinkers Unite.